Hello and welcome to the Big Time Strength Podcast, a podcast featuring small school strength coaches making the big time where they're at. I am your host, Gage Rozier. I appreciate you tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hey guys, this week we have a great interview with Coach Korey Van Wyk. Coach Van Wyk is a kinesiology instructor and assistant strength conditioning coach at Northwestern College in Orange City, Iowa. There at Northwestern, he's teaching all kinds of courses. He's teaching strength conditioning, personal training, anatomy, nutrition, all kinds of stuff. But he's also working in the weight room. He's working with football, men's and women's soccer, wrestling, all kinds of athletes. And in this episode, we talk a lot about that dual role he's in, about how they fundraise with a clinic, kind of their intern structure of how they have blended that with their degree program and how they prepare coaches throughout their 4 years there at Northwestern. It's an awesome program they got going on there. And we also talk a lot about agility and the difference between agility and change of direction and training athletes to be great decision makers and what the literature says. Just a great talk from Coach, and I learned a lot from him. It's a great episode. And I encourage you to check out the show notes on this one because we linked up his private YouTube channel where he shared a lot of the drills he's using with those guys agility-wise. Really, really cool stuff here from Coach Van Wyk. But before we get to the interview with Coach Van Wyk, I want to give you a little bit of a heads up on the future of Big Time Strength. Starting next week, Coach Preston Peterson, who was the guest on our second episode of Big Time Strength, will be joining me and helping me host these podcasts. And he's going to focus on the high school coaches. And so every other week, we're going to have high school and college coaches coming on to share what they're doing. And the reason why we're doing this is the high school sector is extremely important. And there's a lot of awesome coaches doing a lot of amazing things. And Coach Preston is going to be able to relate to those coaches a lot better than I can, reach out to them better, follow up, and just bring a better interview and material to you guys and to the show. And also it's going to help take a little bit of the load off of my plate and just really split the workload a little bit to make this a little more sustainable come fall when all the athletes get back for both of us. So I am really excited that Coach Preston has agreed to do this with me. Starting next week, he's going to start bringing some awesome high school coaches with you, and I'll keep bringing the college coaches as well. So just wanted to give you an update on that. I hope everybody has a great 4th of July. Be safe. Enjoy your friends and family. Now let's get to Coach Korey Van Wyk. Hope you enjoy. He's got a lot of great stuff. Hope you get a lot out of it. Thanks. All right, Coach Van Wyk, I really appreciate you coming on at the Big Time Strength Podcast. Why don't you get us started here by just telling us kind of your journey through strength conditioning, where you're at right now, and kind of the situation right there, who you're working with, kind of your role as your coach and the professor of kinesiology there at Northwestern College.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, Gage. I've already listened to several episodes, and it's great stuff. I think this is a great idea. So, just really appreciate you having me on. So, yeah, actually, my beginning will sound similar to some of the guests you've already had. Where meaning I got my start at Central College, where I majored in exercise science, and then was an intern and student on that staff for 3 years. And obviously, yeah, it was a great experience, and I got a ton of, experience coaching right away from a young age. So, like, as a sophomore in college, you're leading groups through warm-up or through their entire lift, or you're teaching incoming athletes everything they need to know about training. So, and then by the time you're a senior, you have your own team. So it was a great experience for me, just like some of your other, Matt and Jake talked about in previous episodes. So that was my start. And, through that, I actually got into nutrition quite heavily. I found that anytime I had time to read, I really gravitated towards the nutrition side. So after Central, went to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, where I got my master's in nutrition, and actually went the sport nutrition route there rather than strength and conditioning. So I was on the sports nutrition staff under Josh Hinks, who was the nutritionist there at the time. Worked for him, got some experience there. Also did some teaching. That's kind of where I got my feet wet teaching. I was a graduate assistant for the nutrition department, helped teach some of those nutrition classes. And then that really got me thinking about academics. So after Nebraska, I actually started my PhD at Iowa State in nutrition. I was there for about a year and a half, where did some research there, and I hated it. So I started it. I ended up leaving because the research, that particular research especially, was not for me. I was spending more time with rodents than people, and any strength coach listening, imagine yourself in a lab all day with a lab coat, the whole deal. That was me, and I hated it, so I left. I had a short stint as a personal trainer in Des Moines, Iowa for a while, and then applied for and got the job here at Northwestern. And what I do here now is I have a dual role. I'm partly academic, where I teach 4 to 5 classes a semester, along with all the other stuff that comes with being a faculty member. So advising students, being on academic committees, and all that jazz. And then I also serve as our one of our strength and conditioning coaches. So my specific teams are football, wrestling, the soccer teams, cheer, and dance. And so that's kind of the other aspect of my role. And I just finished up my 4th year.
Awesome. There's a lot of good experience you got going on there, and Central College has been very well represented on our podcast so far.
I know.
So,
yeah, I mean, I hope the listeners, this isn't the Central Strength podcast, I promise. It's just, it just speaks to the quality of that program. And Central was kind of a pioneer at the time. And I think maybe Springfield would have had a program back when we were going, but as far as I know, Central and Springfield might have been the only 2 schools that had a full-time strength and conditioning coach. And then, Jake Anderson, our mentor, just worked so hard to get that intern program off the ground. And I think that's the fruit of that labor.
Yeah, absolutely. They obviously got it going on. So let's talk a little bit about how are some ways that you have been able to acquire additional funding for your department, for your teams, whatever it might be.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we're in a similar situation that you hear a lot with smaller schools. Like, we really don't have our own budget. We're kind of in the umbrella of just facilities. So if we want to raise money, we kind of have to do our own thing and start our own account. We don't have anything that's put into that account specifically. So the biggest thing we have done to raise money is put on a clinic. We've had a clinic the past 2 years, and that's been, the first year we really didn't make any money. We basically just broke even. And this past year, it made quite a bit more money. We were able to charge just a little bit more, but by and large, it was just, a few more people came, and that's really been the biggest way that we've managed to raise money for our specifically strength and conditioning program. And we've had some good fundraising, or some good donor. We have a Red Raider club who is just like an athletic alumni club that they've been very gracious when we've asked for certain things. They've really come through, but something that we specifically have done would be put on a clinic.
So what would be the first step, you think, in putting that on? Where do you start?
Mm-hmm.
Where did you guys start
Yep.
at?
Yep. The first thing we did was we approached the college.
Okay.
So we approached public relations. Here we have a grad college. We have an online graduate college, and they're very willing to help any department that wants to do continuing ed, specifically for if you need continuing education credits. So that's the first thing we did. We said, hey, we want to do this. We think it'd be really beneficial for the college itself. There's not a ton of, I feel like, sometimes you feel like in the Midwest, you have to travel really far to go anywhere for CEUs. So we thought, hey, even though we're a small town, we have bigger towns surrounding us, and let's try to get some good information out there. And so we did that. The college was on board with it. They helped us out. And the next thing is you have to find people who are willing to do it. And, early on, you might rely on your friends, and that's okay. we honestly, I emailed, and myself and our head coach, Kyle Oxner, emailed a bunch of our friends. And up front, we were like, hey, we might not be able to pay you. And the great thing about this industry and this field is that people will do it. Like they are willing to help, colleagues and friends out. And that's how we got the ball rolling. So is basically, if you can approach the college to help you, because from a marketing standpoint, that was huge. I don't know how else we would have marketed it as from a promotional material standpoint. But even then, it takes some legwork of just reaching out to people and letting them know that you're putting something on, and then getting a date squared. And that's it. You get people to say yes to a date. You try to put yourself out there, and then, we were hoping for 25 to 30 people our first year, and we got 50. And then this past year, just a few more. So
awesome.
That were kind of steps that we took.
Well, cool, because that's something I think I'm likely to be in a great area in Kansas City where maybe we could explore that. When do you guys usually do that? Is it a spring thing? Is it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And that's the other big thing. Like, choosing the date is a little tough because, especially during the year for us as strength coaches, it's tough to get away.
Yeah.
And we had kind of that first weekend in May is kind of where we've planted our flag and said that's kind of our weekend of when we're going to do that. So just going forward, just for anyone be on the lookout, but that first week in May is where we're going to plan on having that kind of yearly clinic.
Right on. Well, I'll check that out for sure. So yeah. So how about managing, developing staff? That's a big part of being in this situation, is helping those under you and developing them to be a strength coach like you had in your internship at Central there. So what are you doing in that realm?
Yeah, very similar, actually. We're doing something very similar. And Central has done this too, but we've made it an actual academic program. So at Central, it was like, come help us out. We'll give you credit. It was just general credit to go towards graduation, but it didn't fulfill any kind of requirement for coursework. Now it's changed. And for us, it's an actual academic program. So if you want to do strength conditioning here, you become an exercise science major, and we have a career concentration in it. And all that means is it's just more than a minor, but it's not quite a major yet.
Sure.
So yeah, it's very similar to the setup we had. We actually modeled it after Central. So as sophomores, your sophomore year, you take a practicum course, and in that practicum course, you learn all the nuts and bolts of strength conditioning. So like every component of a program: warm up, agility, speed, plyos, strength training, mobility, conditioning, everything that goes into developing that we consider like strength conditioning. You kind of learn it, you get your feet wet and learn about it, the basics of it in that sophomore year. And then with all of our practicums, you have to have a certain amount of hours met coaching with myself or Coach Oxner in the weight room. So there are interns. So the requirement of the class is that you have to be an intern for us. And that's kind of how we rope it into everything. So, they get the classroom work and the practical stuff at once. So that's like their sophomore year practicum. Their junior year practicum, they'll learn program design. So they kind of figure out how to take all the puzzle pieces that they learned about in practicum, their first practicum, and they'll figure out how to put them together into a program. In their junior year practicum, their hour requirement in the weight room with us goes up. The responsibility that we give them goes up, depending on how they develop. And then their senior year, they get their own team. And that's really how we get them a lot of experience. So it's very similar. They get their own team, and then that senior year practicum is led by them and what they want to learn. So that's kind of always in flux, whereas the first two are pretty set for the most part, and in what they're going to basically be doing. So that's kind of our progression. I think it's worked really well. It gets them a ton of experience. So by the time they leave here, they've already coached a team all on their own for at least a full semester, if not longer.
Yeah, holy cow, that's awesome because by the time
Yeah.
they're done with you, they're ready to go, man. They're ready to be a GA. They're
Yeah.
ready to.
And
That's awesome.
another aspect of that is in order to graduate from Northwestern in exercise science, and I think most majors, you have to have an outside internship. And I think that's really permeating most undergrad programs, but it was not part of my undergrad program. And so by the time they leave here, they have they have an outside internship. Like right now, we've got one of our students is interning at University of Nebraska, and then another one of our interns is our students is interning at the UFC Performance Institute. So and we've had people in the past go to Denver or Minnesota. So before that, so they get that in addition to their academics and helping with us. So we feel like we prepare them pretty well before they even get a GA.
Yeah, their resume is going to be awesome, but the required outside internship, and they could put all that on there going into a GA spot. That's pretty cool. That's big time. There needs to be more of that in the college. I don't know how many programs do that. I mean, I really don't. I mean, I think that's awesome what you guys are doing. That's great. How about
absolutely, man. Thanks.
Yeah. What I know you guys have done a lot since you've been there. So what's next? I mean, what's your vision? You're always thinking about what's next on what you want to accomplish. So what's your vision for you guys there the next, 5-10 years?
Sure, yeah. Well, we want to push it to a major. Like we don't right now, again, like I said, it's a career concentration, but we want to push that to a major because nobody knows what the heck a career concentration is. Like when I'm meeting with prospective students and parents and I try to explain to them what a career concentration is, I just get blank stares, like the glazed over look. And so if we just say, that way we can say, you know what, you come to Northwestern, you can major in, we'd like to call it human performance. That way it's more like, if you want to be a personal trainer, you can still do this. It's not just for strength and conditioning coaches who want to work with athletes. It's just human performance. We've a few programs here in Northwestern have done that, and their growth has really taken off when they move to a major. So we really want to get that done. Not sure when that will happen. And with that, though, we want to just kind of bolster some of the academic side a little bit. So we have a class here called Techniques and Resistance Training, which as it stands right now is a half semester. It's literally what it sounds like. You're taught by one of us, myself or our other strength coach, how to lift, like very intricately. This is not an activity class. It's an academic class where you're taken through how to do all the major lifts. Okay. And we'd like to get that to a full year. So that when they get to me in their first practicum, I don't have to spend time basically going through that. So like right now, starting strength is a big component of that first year practicum, right? And I'd like to spend more time with the other stuff. So if they come into me already knowing the lifts, not that we wouldn't revisit that to a degree, we can spend more time on how do you develop and lead a warm-up? How do you develop and lead speed training? Maybe some other factors in strength conditioning, and then give them a little bit more in-class experience before they get on the floor. So if I say, hey, so-and-so, can you take this team through the warm-up? If I'm tied up, I know exactly what they're going to get. So that's kind of the goal with that. And then what I think it will allow us to do is we'll we want to do some more sports science. We're pretty lucky here to have a great facility, and I think we'd like to leverage that a little bit more. And we also have a great ex-phys lab, and we're gaining more students. So what we would like to do is in that senior year practicum, give them a team for a full year versus just a semester. So that way they get everything. They're going to get in season, they're going to get off season, everything that goes with a full year. Because in their second year practicum, they have to write a full year program on paper, right? But we know that's not how it always goes. What's on paper is not always what goes on. So it gives them that full year experience, because sometimes otherwise they get a team that's just in season, depending on what team they get.
Yeah.
We want them to get the whole experience. So then that just gives them more time, and then we'd like to do more sports science, whether that be we're going to use our students to help us track things, or they're going to choose something they want to track, and they have to do a project on that throughout the year. And then that goes all into like their kind of capstone project at the end of the year. That's kind of the vision, I would say, for the next 5 years.
Well, that's taking something that's already good and making it even better is what you're trying to do. It sounds like, and it's
that's the hope.
Well, I encourage our listeners, and I'm gonna probably try to follow up with you too on. I'm really trying to revamp our internship program a little bit here at William Jewell, and I encourage our listeners to reach out to you, and because you guys got it going on for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone wants our stuff, like, we're an open book. We'll share whatever, because everyone has great stuff, and we can learn from them. But if anyone wants that, just shoot me an email, and I'll be happy to send it to you, or even if you want it to the show notes.
Okay. Yeah, will do. All right, let's talk about maybe a tough hurdle, depending on whatever that might be. It might be, staff limitations or resources or whatever it might be. What's one of those hurdles you've had to climb, and how did you overcome it?
Sure. I would say my toughest hurdle, without a doubt, is the dual role. Because on paper, I'm a teacher. On paper, I'm a professor. So that's a huge chunk. So like I said at the beginning, I teach 4 to 5 classes a semester, and these are not they're not activity classes. They're junior, senior level, and sophomore level classes. So I teach our nutrition classes. I teach our anatomical kines. I teach personal training. And that's significant. Like that's quite a bit. So like just balancing the dual role, and we all know what strength and conditioning can be like, just from a emotional standpoint, kind of just the way it sometimes can drain you that way, and just hours, right? And just balancing. I'm here in the building before most anybody at 5 a.m. or whatever on the regular, and then you go from your morning training sessions to your 7:45 or 8 a.m. class, and then just kind of that whole deal, and balancing that has been a learning process, to say the least, no doubt about it. I just like the shift in mindset you have, and maybe the shift you need to make in who you are as a teacher, because I think we'd all agree that coaching is teaching, and vice versa, but it's different when you step into a classroom. Sometimes switching between those mentalities is tough. And I would say the best way I've learned to just kind of manage that, number one, is relying on our students. Like, no doubt about it. Like, we give our students quite a bit of responsibility, because it does help us out quite a bit. Whether that be, if they're senior level practicum, we'll give them, they have their own team that's part of their class. They have to have that. But we, depending on the student, we also give them maybe aspects of programming, or we'll give them some type of responsibility. And that's beneficial for everybody, because it gives them something that they can take and own, and it helps us out as well. So I would say that's first and foremost. And then from the strength and conditioning side, not feeling like I have to reinvent the wheel every single semester or every single year. Like, I think a lot of us sometimes have to be realistic, and I think every strength coach says this somewhere down the line, their first 5 to 10 years, is to be realistic about the level of your athlete, and maybe being okay not totally revamping and rehauling everything all the time. So I definitely got into that rut, man. I got into that where, what's the new thing I got to do? I can't do, if I do the same thing I did last year, that is bad. And this is something that my head coach reminds me of all the time. Are you changing things for you, or are you changing it for your athlete?
Yeah.
And be honest with yourself on what that is. And there are times where I had to be honest with myself and be like, no, I'm changing this because of me, not because it's what the athlete needs. So it's I kind of had to step back and be honest with myself about the level of athlete I was coaching, maybe. And not only was that better from a time perspective, programming wise, it worked better. Like results from training and also training efficiency were way better when I scaled back a little bit on certain aspects and allowed myself not to feel like I had to reinvent the wheel.
Well, it's interesting you said that because that's what we found here too. Actually, I found that, I'm going into my third summer here at Jewel, and my program has gotten simpler over those 3 years.
Right.
And me and my GA, we sat down right before winter training start. I was like, all right, I think we're not really good at anything. We're doing a lot of stuff, but let's just step back and get really good at the basics. And our numbers were the best we've had since I've been here. And it was just basic stuff and then simple. And you're right. I mean, just are we changing stuff because we want to try all this cool stuff and, everything we see out there in social media, everything? Or are we changing because that's what the athletes need? I think that's a great concept to think as when you're programming as a coach.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Well, let's get into some training stuff. What kind of programming methodologies or whatever you follow what have you really had success with?
Sure. So from a weight room perspective, I think one thing that I've implemented, and I think it's funny because I listened to Jake Niederman's episode this morning, and he kind of mentioned training-wise, there's just nothing new. Like things have been around forever. Or they've just been rehashed and renamed and remarketed, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that's totally true, totally true. But, the APRE for me has been a staple. And I guess, are you familiar with the APRE? Like, I don't know if you want me to explain that for the listeners. But, from a strength perspective, for most people, for most coaches, they've got this 6 to 8 week block during the year where they have their athletes and they can really train with them. For us, they have their season and then they have their spring or their off season practice time.
Yeah.
And you have this 6 to 8 weeks in the middle where you can actually train people. And that's just, that's not a very long amount of time to get, and if we're talking strength here, which we can say that maybe most athletes need to get stronger. That's not very much time. So how do you get the most out of that 6 to 8 week block where you're going to, outside influences are maybe less, outside stressors. And that's what really attracted me to the APRE because it allows people to progress at the pace that's needed and that is appropriate to them. And I just really haven't found anything that's as potent to increasing strength levels in a short amount of time as that. So from a weight room perspective, I would say that's a huge staple of my programming, especially. I would say every incoming athlete or freshman athlete does the APRE at some point their incoming year. Just kind of depends on the sport, but that would be one for sure. And then the other one that I've incorporated quite a bit is just the way that we train agility. And this is primarily talking about my football and then soccer teams. The way we've trained agility has really changed over the past 3 years, and that's been the other aspect that I've focused on a lot. That I know it has. I know it's made a difference because I talk to my athletes, I watch them move, the coaches tell me about how they move, and it's made a huge difference.
Well, what did you change about how you're training your agility guys? And because we're trying to revamp that a little bit as well here in the APRE. By the way, yeah, I'm with you there on that. We've had a lot of great success with it, and again, yeah, a lot of great results in a short amount of time. But let's dig into that agility stuff a little bit. What specifically did you change, and what are you really focusing in on?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's been a process, and I would say here's the crux of maybe where I've really kind of delved into, and it all kind of goes back to the difference between change of direction and agility, and the fact that they're not the same, and that training one is not training the other. And it goes back to, you kind of have to peel back the layers and what is each defined by in the research and in the literature. And change of direction is just that. It's anything that requires a change in direction. Now, and that could be, and change of direction speed is also kind of in there. So you have change of direction where it's just defined by that there is a change of direction. And then change of direction speed is how fast that occurs. And when we do like a 5-10-5 or a 5-0-5 test, you're measuring change of direction speed.
Right.
And the other aspect of that is it's pre-planned. Like, you know where you're going.
Sure.
Versus agility, it does involve change of direction. There has to be a change of direction in there, but agility also is changes in velocity. So if you have someone just running down the sideline, they sprint, take off the gas, sprint again, that would fall under the definition of agility. So it's a change in direction or velocity. But then the other key component is that it's unplanned and it's in response to a stimulus. So if anything that we do is not in response to something and does not have an element of movement that's not planned, it's not agility.
Okay.
So think about all the, 3 years ago, 2/3 of what we did was cone drills.
Yeah.
Where they knew exactly where they're running, they knew exactly what movement patterns they were doing, and that was just the end of it. You run through the cones and you're done. That's not agility training. That's change of direction. Because they knew where they were going, they knew the movements, and there was no stimulus to respond to. And that's where I really sat back and was like, dang, we really don't train a lot of agility because they're not reacting to anything. There's no cognitive component, and when you're with the tests that we typically do in strength conditioning that are supposed to measure agility, they don't measure agility. They measure change of direction speed. And so I kind of was at a crossroads, and I'm like, well, what do we do with this? Because if you train somebody in more of an agility setting where they're responding to a stimulus, they might not do that great on a 5-10-5.
Yeah.
Because that is a test that requires a lot of training or requires an element of training to it. Okay. And here's the other aspect of this, and this could be a deep rabbit hole, so maybe we could have another podcast on this specifically, but one does not necessarily transfer to the other, okay? So because if you can repeat patterns in a closed setting where that is pre-planned, does not mean that those will transfer if movement is unplanned. And the skill of changing direction when a decision needs to be made is fundamentally different than the skill of changing direction when you know you can pre-plan movement. And that just changed my whole world, man. It changed the way that I saw agility training. It changed the way that I saw how we teach movement. It changed everything head to toe. And so the biggest change that we did was we just don't do much that doesn't require a response to a stimulus. Because if they're fundamentally different skills and the research is suggesting that they are, then we need to learn movement in a scenario that's going to represent what they're going to have to do on the field. And learn movement in that context, not necessarily do it on air and then I can't even remember what I used to call them, planned to semi-reactive to reactive kind of progression.
Yeah.
We don't do much of that because it's not the same skill.
Okay.
So almost from the get-go and everything we do, And if people want more on this, I'd be more than happy to send them. Everything we've done on YouTube, I can send links out, but to our playlist. But we just don't do much of anything unless it's extremely new. But by and large, athletes know how to locomote in various ways. So I don't know if we need to start at like these basic bare bones levels. We just don't do much that doesn't have them reacting to a stimulus.
Well, that was going to be my next question. If you start with, those closed drills and then kind of progress to the reactive, but no, you just kind of throw them in there and let it react and responseless right out of the gate.
It's scaled back. It's scaled back. So I'll give you an example. So when most people start like agility or a change of direction day, they're going to start with something like a lateral shuffle or a crossover or a drop step or whatever. Something like that to try to teach how to change direction.
Right. And
with that comes like center of mass, base of support, or power mechanics, things like that go along with that. We'll just do all that, but put them in a scenario where they have to react to something.
Okay.
So maybe day one, if we're working on like a lateral shuffle or moving side to side without crossing your feet, we'll maybe let them feel it out. But by and large, most people have shuffled before in their life, so I don't spend a ton of time like really hammering that, because I know as soon as they respond to a stimulus, that movement fundamentally becomes different. And so I get them in front of a stimulus as soon as I can. So maybe we're going to do like a lateral shuffle, where they're going to take maybe 2 shuffles, one direction and back. Okay, and that's what I would instruct them to do. Now, rather than have them practice that on air so it looks really, really like perfect, I'll let them feel it out for maybe a couple reps, and then we'll do right into them reacting to somebody. So athletes will face each other. One athlete will shuffle in one direction, a couple steps, and his partner will have to mirror him in either direction that they go, like right away.
Yeah.
But it's still just a lateral shuffle. It's not anything crazy. They're only going a couple steps and they're going right back. So they're working on that specific movement pattern in a scenario that they're going to have to on the field, or more likely, I should say, depends on position. That's how we'll do it. And if you want my videos and how I've done this, it's all up there, and I'll be more than happy to share that with anybody. That's how we layer it in. So then we'll maybe do the same with the crossover. We'll do the same running in angles where they have to maybe run at an angle with somebody right next to them, because that changes things. Like when someone gets in your space and you have to react to them, the way that you have to manage your base of support and your center of mass and what you're looking at and your visual cues that you're looking at totally change how you move. So I'm just trying to get our athletes to learn how to do those things and execute movement patterns in a scenario that represents what they're going to have to do on the field, because they're not the same skills versus when you don't. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I hope I'm not totally like, yeah.
No, that's a great, and it's getting me excited. I'm going to check out all that YouTube stuff, and we'll put that in the show notes too, your link to
So I guess my here's what I typically tell people. I say, just do things you normally do. How can you tweak the things that you do to make it more like something they're going to do on the field, or how can you add something that's a stimulus that they have to make a decision and react to it? I mean, when I started, it was literally just very basic general decision making, going off different audio cues, different visual cues, crazy things like hear people do, like, go when I say an odd number or something like that. Something where they can't plan. Like that's just the biggest thing. Like we do way more now that they're put in scenarios where they can't plan, so they have to make decisions and become problem solvers.
Yeah.
And feedback from both athletes and coaches has been phenomenal.
Well,
Now, so like last this is only my like really first full year of implementing this. So, yeah, I'm still waiting to see kind of really how it's paid off, but I think that it will. I'm hopeful, and again, feedback not only last school year, but so far this year from spring practice seasons has been very good.
Right on. That's some awesome stuff. And one of my favorite ones, like say we'll do like a 5-10-5 or a pro agility drill, and I'll tell them, all right, I'm gonna give you a addition problem. If the answer is right, you go. Or if the answer is even, you go right. Odd, you go left. And
Sure.
it's fun. It's fun for them. They think it's fun. It mixes it up a little bit. But then you start throwing multiplication and division in there. They start. It makes it a little tougher. It's pretty funny. But no, that's awesome stuff, man. Let's before we hit the finisher here, what are some of your favorite professional development resources, books, articles, whatever it might be?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I would say my biggest professional development continuing ed resource right now is Altus 360. So I guess if any strength coach is not familiar with Altus, ALTIS, they need to be, because they're putting out some great stuff right now.
Awesome.
They are a track coaching company, but they do way more than that. They are a sports performance resource. So Altus 360 is an online subscription service that they provide. And every single month, Altus has like a 3 to 4 day long, basically clinic, where they bring in a couple speakers, coaches come in, and for like 3 to 4 days, it's just like camp. You watch them train, you watch them coach. The speakers give their presentations, and you literally just sit around and talk shop. And I've never been, but I'd love to go sometime. But Altus 360 gives you access to all of the presentations.
Oh, cool.
So almost every presentation they've done, going back to a few years ago, is on Altus 360. So, and they're really bringing it's like a who's who of strength conditioning, and it's just great stuff. So that's probably my number one resource. Books wise, I think there's some books that I think strength conditioning coaches don't know about. They should really get familiar with them. And there are actually a couple textbooks. The first one is Strength Conditioning for Sports Performance by Ian Jeffries. The thing is it's like 10 pounds. The thing it's just thick and dense, and everything that you can ever want to know, like every single topic on strength conditioning is in there. But it's all, strength coaches don't have a ton of time to scour literature, right? Like it's there, it's all in there in that textbook. Everything, it's great information. And then a more recent one is Advanced Strength Conditioning by Paul Comfort and Tim Sukamel, which just came out last year, I believe. So those are two textbooks that I would highly recommend because it's much more. They're very research based. I'll give that up front. So, but they're great resources. And I guess the last one I would say from a book perspective, actually a couple books. If you're interested more in the agility stuff I was talking about, Game Speed by Ian Jeffries is a great intro to maybe more of these, maybe non-traditional concepts. And really anything by Sophia Nymphius. If you she has some good research articles out there. She hasn't written a book, but she's written chapters. She wrote the Change of Direction Agility chapter in the Advanced Strength Conditioning textbook. She has some great papers out there, though. And then once you've read Game Speed, and if you like that, and if it resonates with you, I would read a book called Nonlinear Pedagogy and Skill Acquisition. That's a more dense read, but it gets at aspects of really agility development. I mean, in strength and conditioning, that's what we care about.
Yeah.
But when we train athletes to be more agile, we really want them to be. I mean, there's decision-making elements that go into that. There's perceptual cognitive elements that go into that. And nonlinear pedagogy really takes that the next step from Game Speed. So those would be kind of my resources I'd recommend right now.
Sweet. I'm going to check out all of those. That sounds awesome.
Right.
I haven't gotten into any of that, so that's good.
Yeah, definitely. I would definitely read Game Speed before Nonlinear.
Okay.
Because Nonlinear is pretty dense, but great read. It's a great read, though.
Awesome. So let's wrap this up, man. We like to do a little
Sure.
finisher. Just 5 quick ones. Just give me a quick answer to it. Let's do number 1, favorite office snack.
Quest bars.
Quest bars. Let's go. Any particular flavor?
Oh man, yeah. White chocolate raspberry.
Oh, nice. Sounds good.
Yeah. Some of those are not good, but that one is good.
Yeah. All right. We're strength coaches, so most of us have caffeine. So what's your favorite caffeine source?
Oh, definitely coffee.
Good.
No doubt about it.
Yeah. Favorite workout playlist, Pandora or whatever it might be?
Well, I mean, recently got into Spotify. People have convinced me. I'm not picky. Like, honestly, if it has a beat and it has an edge to it during training, I'm good. If I'm angry, it'll be 100% Metallica. If I'm not, I'm not picky. Like, seriously, just a beat, a little bit of an edge, I'm good.
Good. All right, 15 minutes to train. What are you doing?
Personally, like, to train myself?
Yeah, just you.
Okay, yeah. I'm probably gonna push and pull a sled of some kind.
Nice.
Yep.
All right, last one. Small school strength coach who's killing it and deserves a shout out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't say our other strength coach here at Northwestern, Kyle Oxner, has been a phenomenal colleague and friend. Does a fantastic job. So I'd say him first and foremost. And then also I'd be remiss if I didn't give you another Central guy. But, Matt, I was just there last week. I was just at Grandview University. Matt Peja, God, he's doing a great job. I was just super impressed. Like, Jake just on the last episode talked about athletes coaching each other, correcting each other. And I saw all that there. Like, he's doing a great job. So Matt Peja at Grandview is doing an awesome job. Then I've got a few more for you, if that's all right.
Yeah, go for it.
One of our students, her name's Adrian Bishop, or former students, I should say. Adrian Bishop is the head strength coach at Cameron University. It's a D2 school, and she's just back for our clinic. She's doing an awesome job down there. And then Steve Brown at Wisconsin Oshkosh.
Okay.
He's basically the opposite of most of the strength coaches we've had on. He's a veteran. He's been in strength conditioning longer than some of us have been alive. And I was fortunate enough to be on a podcast with him a while back. He's been a ton of different places, and he's just doing a great job at Oshkosh. And then last one I'll say is Brian Seelek at Avila University.
Yeah.
And he's probably he's probably the only person I've found that's a true dual role like what me and Kyle are doing here. He's considered faculty in the exercise science department, but he's also strength conditioning. I've known him now for about a year or so, and he's doing a great job as well. So that'd be my list for you.
Yeah, I know Brian too. He does a great job. So
yeah.
All right, man, this has been awesome. If our listeners want to get a hold of you, I'll put all your stuff in the show notes. But is there any particular forum you'd rather them reach out to you? Twitter, email, whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, email's good. Honestly, if people want my number, I'd be more than happy to share that and shoot me a text or something. That's probably the easiest way. The email's good. I'm pretty active on Twitter, and I'm also on Instagram. But shoot me an email, or I can also share my number too in the show notes if you want to do that. It's probably the easiest way.
Awesome. And yeah, our listeners need to check out your Twitter and Instagram and all that because you got a lot of great stuff. So, Coach, thanks, man. This is awesome. I got 2 pages of notes, so I got some stuff to look into. So, appreciate it, and good luck with the rest of this summer into the fall, and keep killing it up there.
All right. Thanks, man. Thanks again for having me on.